Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back to Fat Cat Collections. And today I want to do another discussion video, but I'm also going to show you some watches as well. And the video I want to talk, or the discussion I want to talk about today, or the topic, is about a topic that I've discussed in the past, and it's gotten so many different comments and different responses by you folks on YouTube. Most positive, but some negative. For the negative comments, I always delete those. As long as you're respectful in your opinion, I have no problem posting it on the channel. But if you're simply going to bash a brand that I'm reviewing simply because you just don't like it, or you have an opinion about it, or you're a snob, as I always say, those comments get deleted. But the comments that are positive and bring something to the discussion, I'll always post. So just so you guys know, for you morons, and I'm gonna touch base, I'm gonna talk about you guys in a second. Just keep that in mind when you respond and comment on the video. Now, this video I want to talk about today is the topic I reviewed before, and this is going to talk about Invicta watch quality. And the reason I want to come back to that is because it just seems like Invicta is one of the few brands that just gets picked on over and over again. I look at it in the forums, I receive some comments about the quality, and it just always blows my mind that these morons out there have something negative to say about the brand. Now, there is the MSRP game that Invicta does play, and you'll see watches there, and I get comments from you guys as well stating that, oh, I saw this watch for, the retail on it was, $3,000, it's only $300, am I getting ripped off? Is this a fake? Okay, so we're just going to talk about a few different things today. Now, in front of me right now, I'm going to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 watches that I just happened to just kind of pick out of my collection, which, again, I like all the watches in my collection. My collection ranges from 100-year-old Timex to $10 watches, all the way up to, I think my most expensive one is about $2,600. So, I think some of you folks sometimes when the negative folks make comments about the Invicta watch quality, either one, they don't own Invicta, two, they don't own the watch that they're claiming is so great, and they've never really side-by-side compared them. And something I am going to do, as time goes on, I'm going to see if I can get my hands on some of those higher-end brands and really side-by-side compare it to some of the entry-level brands. Some folks say you can't do that. And I can understand that comparing a brand like a Rolex or Omega to Invicta is an unfair comparison. You're paying a lot more for the Rolex. The manufacturing standards for Rolex, and not to bash Rolex in any way, it's really above and beyond. I've looked at some of the videos and how the quality control, it's just there, and you are paying for that. And you're paying for a well-known product, but let's face it, there's a lot of markup in that product. And just the fact that there's a huge quality control in producing a watch like that doesn't mean that my $150 Invicta isn't going to last as long. And that's just common sense. And that's the one thing that some of the stupid moron haters out there who are like, Invicta's garbage, Invicta's clown watches, Invicta's this. Invicta makes some watches that, yes, are over the top. And that, to me, is part of my personality. I like those big, huge, chunky timepieces. It's not for everybody. But Invicta makes a lot of smaller watches that are just like watches that are, similar looking in style to Rolex. And when people say, oh, Invicta copies Rolex, I can only think of a few different Invicta watches where they are made in homage to Rolex. Most of the Invicta watches out there, when you see them, you don't even have to see the name on them. You know they're Invicta because they're over-the-top, flashy design. The only two watches I can really think of is the Pro and Grand Diver, made in homage to a Rolex, and of course the Invicta Hydromax, which is made in homage to the Deep Sea Challenge by Rolex, which there's only a few of those in the world, and nobody really has them. So it's pretty cool Invicta made something that's very similar in design to that. It's an awesome watch, and you can get it for 150 bucks. Now, let's talk about Invicta watch quality, because right now in front of me here, for those of you who don't pick on other brands, now if some of those folks say Rolex is the best brand ever and nobody can touch their quality, for that price point, then great. But the thing is, you cannot compare, again, I want you to really take this in, morons, you cannot compare a $5,000 Rolex to a $150 Invicta. Now, when I make the comparison, I'm not sitting here telling you that the $150 Invicta is just as good. I'm telling you they both tell time, and that you're getting an amazing watch for $150 on Invicta. Whether you like the brand or not, they give you an amazing amount of quality for your money. And if you argue that fact with me, you are a moron and don't know what you're talking about. A Rolex should be way better than a $150 watch. I would expect a $5,000 Rolex to be way ahead of a $150 watch. But in my let me just close this here. Sorry, guys. But in my opinion, in some of the watches I have sitting in front of me at various price points from $150 all the way up to $2,680, or say $2,700, there's not a lot of difference in quality. Now, if you're the biggest fan of Rolex and Omega and you're like, oh man, they're the best and you can't touch them, well great, then I will get my hands on one and we'll do the side-by-side comparison at a later date. But right now, let's talk about the perception of price. Just because something is expensive does not mean it's better. That's the way it goes. There are huge markups and companies pick what they want to charge, and they pick that price based on the image that they're trying to portray in their product. Yes, there are better movements. Yes, there are finer movements. And yes, there are better manufacturing standards in different products. But not to say that one is light years better than the other. So just a few watches I want to show you today. I have, of course, starting off, because this is what the discussion is about, is an Invicta Grand Diver. This watch, sorry guys, excuse me, I know it's kind of annoying, but I've been dealing with this sinus thing for a while now, so you just have to bear with me. Sorry, I know it's gross. But this is your Invicta Grand Diver. This is powered by a Seiko automatic movement. You can see the exhibition window on the back. And Invicta puts in most of their Grand Diver and Pro Divers that are automatic. And a lot of their smaller watches like this, they use the Seiko. This, I believe, is the NH35. Anybody who knocks on Seiko, I mean, really is another moron. Seiko's been making watches and amazing timepieces forever. I mean, for years. So this watch is powered by a time-tested Seiko automatic movement, which gives you a great automatic movement. You never have to worry about changing the battery for a certain price point. And this movement is used in tons of watches across the board, not just Invicta. Aragon uses them, which I think is a fantastic watch brand that gives you a ton of amazing quality watch for your money. And I always say, when you look at Invicta watch quality, go into your mall and try to find an automatic watch for $150 with a well-known Seiko automatic movement. You will not find it. You will not find it. I guarantee you. So moving on, this watch can be had, I think I paid $120 for this, okay? And I'm not going to get too involved in showing you what the watch looks like on the wrist and all that stuff, because you can check out my other videos where that's actually what the video is about. This is more of a discussion. Now, so here's what it naturally looks like, which you guys have seen this watch before. Everybody and their brother has seen this watch. And I'm just going to try to give you just a couple shots of it. Again, I'm using a new camera, so I want you guys to also tell me what you think. It's not a super high-end camera. It's a Canon camcorder, and it definitely zooms in a lot better, and lighting seems to be a lot better as well. So I want you guys to tell me what you guys think. All right, you can see now I'm also looking at the bezel movement in these watches. I'm also looking at the finish, how long I've had the watch, the durability, because some folks will come back and say, oh, Invicta finish is going to wear off. All my Invicta watches are over 5 years old, and I wear them daily. Now, I have a lot of them, a lot of watches, so I do rotate them. But, this I bought as my beater watch, and yeah, it's got some scratches. But as far as the finish, there's not a spot wrong with this watch. There's not one part of the finish that's wearing off. There is no issues with gold plating. And one moron the other day was like, oh, cheap gold plating or something like that. There's not, unless you buy a solid gold watch, they're all gold plated. All of them. So, I don't know where this guy's brain is, but he obviously doesn't have one. You know who I'm talking. I'm talking to you, idiot. Alright, so moving on. Now, next to that, let's go jump up in price. So you have a $120 watch. Let's jump up into a well-known watch by Bulova. And this is one of my favorites. This is the Precisionist. And this watch is really beautiful. And, I think what they've done, if they've really taken some of the styling, I think, borrowed it from Invicta. I mean, they kind of went with that large, chunky kind of theme, the over-the-top, lots of different dimension to the face. I think that this watch, if you didn't see the name on it, you might think this was an Invicta. Now, it is a Bulova, and this is one of my favorite watches, the Precisionist. But this watch here, if you were to go buy it in the mall, would cost you about $750. So it's very important when you're shopping to be a smart shopper. Just because something is $750 in the mall doesn't mean it's a $750 watch. But this is a great watch. This is it's got a movement made by Bulova. It tells time like every other watch in my collection. So, for me, some folks, I know if you're a very passionate collector and you really are into, I guess you have a lot of knowledge of what makes a movement good, what makes a movement last, then I can understand your appreciation of maybe fine movements. But why don't we move on? So $750, and side by side, compared to this watch. Now, again, you can get this watch on eBay, where I got it from, for about a little under 300 bucks. So again, double the price. But as far as quality is concerned, the band play is exactly the same as the Invicta. And you know what? Band play is always such a funny thing when people talk about that. What does it really matter if there's movement in the links? Just because a band is super tight doesn't mean it's exceptional quality. It means that's how the manufacturer made it. It doesn't really make a difference as long as the band doesn't fall off. So when I look at the band play, for those of you who are concerned with it, in the Bulova compared to the Invicta, it's about the same. There's a little more movement in the Invicta, but what difference does that make in the quality of the watch? I just don't see the point and why that would even be a factor in considering making a watch. It doesn't make any sense to me. Quality of the stainless steel looks the same to me, feels the same. The weight on the watch is about the same. And guess what, guys? They both tell time and look great. Huh? See that? All right, so moving on. So we have those two watches. Again, two favorite watches of mine. Now let's jump up in price a bit, okay? Let's talk about another watch, and I'm not going to go all the way through the price points in order. I'm just going to show you another watch. And this one here is another watch by the folks at Aquadive, and this is a very generous watch, a generous sponsorship that they provided me, and this is called the Aquadive, and this is called their PHATKATCOLLECTIONS. I always screw that name up, but this is one of their German-made dive watches. This one is powered by a Miyota movement, which is a Swiss-made movement, I believe. In this one here, is it Miyota? No, wait, is it Miyota? Let me just double check that for a second here, because I don't want to give you guys a bump steer here. All these watches have so many different movements, I get kind of confused on what has what. Aquadive, PHATKATCOLLECTIONS movement. Just to double check here, I don't want to give you guys a bump steer. Next thing you know, I'm going to get 8 million comments about it. Excuse me, sorry. This is powered by ETA 2824-2 25 joule Swiss movement. Now ETA, okay, again, is a very well-known, time-tested movement. They've been around for a very long time. And ETA or ETA, depends on how you want to say it. Some folks will correct me, I'm sure, but I don't really care. This watch is a very, very basic-looking timepiece. The ETA movement, I have one of those, my Sub-Aqua Noma 5. It's in several of my watches, and there are movements and there are movements. Some folks, more expensive brands, will actually take a movement that might be in my Invicta watch and put it in one of the more expensive watches, charge you $4,000, and make a few different upgrades to the movement. And some folks seem to think that that rationalizes the markup in price. I'm sorry, but it does not, okay? Just because they made a few upgrades does not mean that watch is going to last twice as long as... There is no formula for how long a watch is going to last. You either get one that works or you get one that has a defect. And again, I have a 100-year-old Timex that was my grandfather's. That still works. That was probably a $10 watch. So the fact that you can turn around and say, oh, well, one watch is better because of this is asinine. You don't know how long something's going to last. Just like you don't know how long you're here on this earth. So to pretend, to make the general assumption that because something costs more is going to last longer is absurd. Now this watch here, before I tell you the price, it is a nice timepiece. It is beautiful. It's CNC machined out of stainless steel. But when I look at the difference, and you have to want to buy this particular watch because you like this watch. Again, great movement. It's a higher end movement than your Seiko NH35. But what does that really mean? Does that mean it's going to last twice as long? We don't really know. So again, there are no guarantees in these watch movements, okay? But nonetheless, it's a beautiful watch. And this watch, I think, is just as nice as the Invicta, okay? As far as quality, when I feel these two watches, when I turn the bezel on one or the other, I don't really see a difference. I will say that there's a difference in the way that it clicks. This one here is more of a finer, I would say finer click, easier to turn. The Invicta is a little harsher, but I mean, really, most people when they buy a watch because they like the way it looks, okay? And they want to get a level of quality too. Again, $129. This one here is going to run you $1,800. Okay, and although it's a beautiful watch, although I think it's a very, very sweet timepiece, I love when I wear this. I think that the isoframe band does feel like skin. I mean, it's very soft. It's a very, very, I guess, very, very well-made product. But you know, when I compare this to my Invicta, I would need somebody to really point out what makes this watch worth $1,800. Now, maybe the labor costs are higher. There's more handmade, I guess, more of a price markup due to the fact that it's handmade. But the fact is, just because something's handmade or made in lower quantities does not mean it's better. It doesn't mean it's going to last longer, okay? So, great watch still, don't get me wrong. You get watches and you buy watches because you like them, because you like the way they look. So, again, to say that Invicta is garbage is just ridiculous, okay? Because I am comparing it side by side with higher end watches. So next thing you know, somebody's going to come back and say the watches I'm comparing with are garbage as well. So, alright, so let's move on. Let's move on to another brand. Awesome watch brand. This one is called the Visser Watch. This one here is made to kind of resemble a fishing reel. But the brothers used to be involved, or they make, this watch comes from a family who makes fishing reels, and they branch off into making watches. Beautiful timepiece. I think this watch is very, very unique. This one is powered by a Miyota movement. I'm not going to list which one. There are higher end Miyotas and lower end Miyotas, but it's more their middle of the road Miyota movement. Again, what does it do? It tells time, folks. And when I compare this watch, I mean, you have some interesting elements. You have your carbon fiber, which is real carbon fiber. That's a little more expensive. You still have your surgical grade stainless steel. Sapphire crystal on this one, as opposed to the Invicta, which uses their flame fusion crystal, they call it. Different process, but here's the thing: neither one have a scratch in them. So, you know, if you do something very like if I worked construction and I was really working with concrete or working with things that I'm banging the watch around a lot, I probably wouldn't wear either of these. I'd wear something a little more industrial. But here's the thing: what I definitely wouldn't do is wear this at the price of about $1,000. And this one here at $129. I would consider this my beater watch because, you know, if I scratch it or I mess it up, I'm not really too concerned with it. This would make me sick if I damage this watch. So still an exceptional watch, beautiful watch. But when I compare them side by side, what you're paying for is the uniqueness of this watch. That's about it. You're paying for a watch at a certain price point where, you know, their labor costs are involved, and that's what they have to price the watch at to make money. And that's what it's about, making money. So Invicta produces a lot of watches really cheap. And of course, okay, and then this watch here, let me tell you, I'm not going to say which brands here. I don't want to say anything bad about the brands because, again, I like all these, and I'm really so happy that they're in my collection. And for the manufacturers to send me these watches, you know, they don't come across saying that we make the best watch ever. You know, they're not like the watch snobs on the channel who are like, oh man, this is the best watch, the other ones are garbage. They have a mutual respect for all the brands, but they make a watch at a certain point for a certain person who wants to buy something that maybe, hey, you know what, I want to wear a watch that not everybody's going to have. So, you know, maybe the guy who's going to spend $1,000 for this or $1,900 for this, you're kind of at a different category where you know that the guy who can only afford this isn't going to have that. So, all right, so with that being said, is the watch better? Well, I don't know. They're all working, so I couldn't really tell you. But they're all automatics, and they all keep time. And so the thing about automatic watches is so many folks get so involved in, oh, well, it loses a minute, you know, per year or whatever it loses. You know, I've never actually tested it. Because here's what happens. When you're a fanatic collector like myself, you have many watches. And so here's what happens. I wear this one day, it sits in my safe, and then I come back to it 2 weeks later, and it's dead. The time is not set because the watch has lost power. Now, I'm not going to go out and buy a 50 watch winder box, okay? It's just not, I'd rather just set the time. So, alright, so moving on. So we saw the $130 Invicta compared to a $750 Bulova, depending on where you buy it. Your $1,000 Visser watch, your $1,800 Aquadive watch. Now let's take a look at another one. Here's another one powered by Miyota movement. And this watch is awesome looking, and this is made by Delta T, and this watch is made of a bronze type material. I believe it is solid bronze. It is all bronze, actually. It's a beautiful watch, very, very unique, and this watch here is going to run you $1,500. Now this watch, I can almost rationalize it a little more because it's so unique, and because it's made of bronze, it really is something very, very spectacular. It's one of the most favorite watches in my collection. But when I look at the quality of this watch, yes, it's chunky, it's heavy. Sometimes we associate, you know, and guys have gotten after me on my channel about this, is that just because something's heavier doesn't mean it's better. Well, that is true. But remember, just because something costs more doesn't mean it's better either. So, again, I can use that argument with that as well, because guess what? This is powered by a Miyota movement, and you know what it does? It tells time, like the other ones. And when I feel this watch compared to the Invicta for $130, yes, there's a weight difference. Yes, there is a cosmetic difference, of course. But do I think that this one is higher quality than this just because it's $1,500 and looks different? No, I don't. Although I love this watch. I mean, this is one of my favorite watches. So let's move over to another watch. This is another one by a company called Swiss Military Watch. And this is something similar in styling, I guess, to like an aviator watch. It doesn't have a rotating bezel. It has a, basically, what do they call this thing? They call it a, I always forget here. It's got a, I'm sorry, guys. I think it's some kind of calculator on the watch. Again, this is like I don't, you know, and there's ways you can basically use this. This turns on the inside here, so you're able to actually use this to, I guess, calculate different things. I saw a video on it. Too complicated for me to figure out. But nonetheless, this watch is going to run you $500. And when I, again, compare this watch to the $130 Invicta or the other watches here, the Bulva, this watch is cosmetically different looking, but I don't see this watch being worth. Now, if you like the watch because of the design, the way it looks, but when we're looking at quality, this is a quartz watch for $499 that you're going to find on Joma Shop and eBay, and I reviewed it, I wear it, I like it. But here's the thing, this watch, because it's $500, is not better than the Invicta for $130. It's just a different timepiece and another one for your collection. But when you feel the stainless steel, when you look at the quality of the components, the type of stainless steel, the way the function pushers feel, all the things you can just feel and look at with the naked eye, okay, it tells time. That's the difference, okay? That's it, there's no difference. So the final watch I want to show you here is a watch by Alexander, and this one is on the higher end. This one here is their Olin. And I have 3 of these watches in my collection. The company was nice enough to send me these for a review, and I'm going to come back to them and re-review them. And this watch, I have to tell you, when I wear it, I love the way the black looks cosmetically, the black with the silver. Very similar in styling to like a Rolex. Just like, again, people aren't coming after Alexander saying, oh, they're copying Rolex. No, guess what? This one looks like a Rolex. This one looks like a Rolex. There are so many watches out there that look like a Rolex. It's a very basic, simple design. That's why lots of watches look like that, because it's a basic, simple design. There's nothing fancy. Somebody didn't really have to dream it up. It's a basic looking watch. It's an iconic watch. They've made the same style for years. That's Rolex, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. But this watch here is powered by a Valjoux 7750. Now this is a higher end movement, and price on this particular movement, if you're going to buy just the movement on eBay, you're looking at about $300 to $400 just for the movement. And this is a chronograph movement, so naturally there's more complication involved in making a movement like this. The Valjoux, you can't argue with me or with anybody. If you say a Valjoux 7750 is a garbage movement, you have to have your head examined, because this movement is used in some super high-end watches, and this watch right here is going to run you $2,600. When I feel this watch, when I feel the quality of the components, there's a little bit more of a weight to it based on the movement, but when I compare it to this Invicta, again, weight-wise, if you want to compare weight-wise, remember, you guys said we can't use weight as a determining factor on quality. You know what they both do? They tell time. The bezel feels very similar, although the Alexander clicks a little easier. Invicta a little bit harder, a little harsher, of course, but $2,600 watch versus a $130 watch. And guess what? They're both automatic, although, again, one is a chronograph. The Valjoux is a little bit thicker, but not really by all that much, just because Invicta kind of has its back that kind of flutes out a little bit. I don't know if you can see that there. But, again, when you look at the quality of the components, the materials, the way the function pushers feel, the way the crown screws down, I mean, guys, there's not any difference that I can feel between any of these watches other than weight that tells me that one is a better watch than the other. If I didn't tell you what any of these watches cost, without telling you, if you didn't know what they were and you felt them, you would not be able to tell me which one was more money. You probably would look at the one that was the most unique in styling and then say, oh, this one's got to be worth more, just based on the looks. And so when it comes down to looks, most people are have the same mentality. They look at what something looks like and how complicated it looks and the different things that make it unique and base the value on that. And weight is a big factor. When they feel something substantial and heavy, human nature automatically goes towards, this is bigger, heavier, it must be made better. You know, it's just like if you pick up a frying pan, you feel a light frying pan, you pick up a heavy frying pan, you're like, oh, must be cast iron, this is better quality. Not always true, but again, weight and price don't really make something better than another. Now again, when I've done my videos, I've gotten so many comments, and it seems like I get them in waves. I'll get the haters telling me how Invicta sucks, and I'll get the folks who love Invicta, who have Invicta. And what I love is when I have the guy, and I get so many of them, again, the guy who has the Rolex and the Omega and has the Invicta, and he says, man, I like my Invicta just as much. And, you know, again, if you are, and I say snob, and I mean that, because if you're the type of person who gets on my channel and tells me Invicta sucks because you don't like the way that it looks and you think it's a clown watch. I love these morons. I just got one comment today, and hopefully I think I deleted your comment already. Let me double check if I did. If it's still there, I hope it is. I'd like to call you out personally. Nah, I deleted it. But one knucklehead said, you should just take a clock on the wall and strap it to your wrist. When it was the Who Makes the World's Biggest Watch video. Way to go, guy. That was the most creative comment ever. You know how many times I've heard that comment, moron? I mean, really. I mean, if you don't like something, you don't have to bash it. You can be respectful of other people and say, hey, you know what? That's not for me, but, you know, I'm glad you like it. And some people, one moron the other day said, oh, well, in the business world, people upstairs are laughing at you with that Invicta. Man, I get more compliments on my Invicta watches, the over-the-top ones, than any of my watches combined. And you know why that is? Because people look at it and it's unique. And although they look at it and say, man, I couldn't pull it off, or I necessarily wouldn't wear that, a little too big for me, nice people still appreciate the fact that you like something and that you're proud of it and that it's a conversation starter. Your personality is what makes people like you and respect you and not laugh at you. And fools who make these comments, guess who's laughing at you? Me. So, guys, thank you very much for watching my video. I am going to wrap it on up now because we're getting close to the 30-minute mark, and you guys know I love to ramble on. So, I am wordy, and I hope that I've given you guys a little bit of insight on watches, on the MSRP, on quality of watches, my experience comparing higher-end watches. I'm not saying, you know, super luxury watches because that's not in my budget, but higher-end timepieces versus what would be considered entry-level, more affordable timepieces. And I don't use the term low-end timepieces because, again, your $130 Invicta is not a low-end timepiece. It's an entry-level watch that everybody can afford, where you're getting exceptional quality for a certain price. And the value you get in Invicta will blow away any Omega and Rolex that they make. So, oh man, we're getting a phone call already? Just gotta end that real quick. Alright, so anyway guys, sorry about that. So remember, if you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, by all means drop them. If you're going to make negative ones, they're going to get deleted. I'm just telling you right now. For the morons out there, if you're going to come out there and just be like, Invicta sucks, or you need, here's my favorite one. Again, this is coming from the guys who love these watches and bash Invicta. You need a clown nose and shoes to go with that watch. Alright, you know what, moron? You're probably some big fat tub who has nothing, who just wants to get on YouTube and troll. And you know what? Obviously, you don't have anything, and that's why you got to get on YouTube and try to bash people who are passionate about things, who do like things. And you know who's the clown? You're the clown. Because only jealous people make negative comments. And that's in my experience in life. So guys, if you have constructive criticism, by all means, you're more than welcome. If you're not a fan of Invicta, but you like Rolex, you're more than welcome too. Be respectful, be nice, be kind of other people's feelings. Have a great day. Subscribe to the channel. And oh, tell me what you guys think of the video quality. I'm re-recording in 1080p now, and I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this versus the other videos. Alright guys, thanks again for watching. As always, have a great day.